Welcome to the Get Stuck In podcast. We're back for another episode. We are joined by Harry. We've got a Chelsea fan on the show, so we're getting yet another fan viewpoint at the end of the show with the fan questions. But as we always do, we're going to start with a roundup of the week's action. And there's a couple of places we could start this week. Could start with Chelsea. We could carry on the Liverpool chat as we always do. But I guess it makes sense to go to the biggest game of the weekend: Man City, Man U. What were Man City on? It was like a 20 game unbeaten run in all competitions. And then, winning run. And then Man United stroll up, as they do quite a lot. What did you make of that win for Man United, Harry? Where do you think that leaves them?
I thought the United played pretty well, but I do just feel like City were also quite bad, and there was the whole United sat back, got their early little penalty, and it kind of suited their game plan quite a lot. But yeah, no, I thought City were a bit disappointing, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you compare it to how they've been. It was I think you're right. There's a lot of games where you get that early goal and it just kills it.
Yeah.
Changes the way it gets played. But Max, were you hoping Man City won that one from a Liverpool potentially getting top four perspective?
I'm not giving up on top four, so it's not really an issue now. Like, I mean, I obviously I'd rather United lose, but to be honest, at this point, it's not really doesn't really make much difference to me. I mean, Ollie did another operation, saved my job, so like he did well. Like honestly, like
Yeah.
his hats off to him again because he seems to pull these results out the bag when he needs them most. So no complaints. I mean, I didn't really look like City played that well, to be honest. Um, but I mean, they got the job done. United. That's what matters at the end of the day.
Do you think I saw people saying that, like, there's this Bruno not doing it in big games narrative. Do you think this counts as
I
doing it
saw
in
the
big
interview.
games,
Yeah.
getting a penalty?
Not really.
I don't know, man. For me, not really. Like how he scores a second-minute penalty and he puts his hands over his ears as if he's like some sort of god. Like I don't really buy that. If you look at their kind of big six record, like his interview, he was like, oh yeah, I scored against Tottenham, and so why is no one counting that? That was a penalty in a 6-1 defeat. Don't know what he's doing talking about that, to be honest. So I mean, he's a pretty amazing player, really. Everyone would like to have him, but I do think that United fan base chat a lot of garbage, don't they?
Yes, they do. I feel exactly the same way. Honestly, like I rate him so highly. I just feel like this whole that he hasn't performed against the big six. It's not. I said this last week. It's not like he's played atrociously. It's just he's not quite played at the level that he has against mid-table sides.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I think
yeah, you go.
Yeah, I think if you want to, because he's kind of talked up in this kind of conversation of like the top players in the league, one of the best, and for sure he is. But like, if you look back at the real top players you've had, so you had like Aguero a couple of years ago, David Silva, Hazard, they all turned up in these big games, and I just don't think his record is impressive enough in the real big games for the amount of people that talk about him so much.
Well, we'll give him credit for one that I've just remembered was the free kick against Liverpool. That's the only other one.
Yeah, it's FA Cup though, isn't it? Not the same thing.
Yeah.
To be fair, he was all right against Leipzig, wasn't he? He scored against Leipzig, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but then they did lose, didn't they?
But they went out of Champions League, so
in the biggest game against Leipzig, they lost. So.
Well, that's got to be the difference, isn't it? You talk then about all these old players who've done it in the big games. It's not just done the big games; they've got the trophies in, and like even to an extent, someone like Zlatan, Man United weren't great at that time, but he did get them a Carabao Cup and a Europa League, and obviously they're playing Man City and they played Liverpool last year. It's hard to win that league, but you see it all the time. It's not like the rest of their team is made up of bad players, as much as they might not be as good. Like they definitely have a base there, and I think everyone agrees they're one or two off. And if Bruno is going to be this elite top player, he's at some point has to sort of drag them to it. But one player I just wanted to touch on, he's come under a lot of criticism recently. What did you make of Martial? Because I thought he was sort of back to his best in that game.
I personally thought, I thought he was good. I thought the runs he made and stuff like that was good. He looked kind of active and was a bit more intelligent. But I think, we're also comparing him to, like, he was awful a few weeks ago. Like, wasn't running back, wasn't putting in a shift at all. And he did miss a couple big chances in the Manchester derby, but he was active and he was kind of running around and a bit, he just actually put a bit of effort in.
Yeah.
So, I thought he was good, but I still think that there's so much talent and potential there. It's just every year you kind of get it in drips and drabs kind of thing. You never really get a consistent showing or a few games. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes on a 4-game run and then goes back to that kind of like disinterested, missing a load of sitters kind of,
I think the classic thing was you saw it. I think the most specific example of Martial encapsulated was last year at the end of the season, post-COVID. He went on that 9-8 game run where he looked world class. Yeah. To be quite honest, he made the France squad as well. And then this season, it's like in seasons previous, he's had the excuse in that he has been a bit injury prone, but not this year. He's just been awful for most of the season. I thought he was really going to kick on this year, and that just hasn't happened. And I mean, he played well at the weekend, but I mean, compared to how he was playing at the end of last season, it's nothing, to be honest. So,
do you think he comes into that bracket? People joke about Firmino being this defensive striker.
I do find that funny, the comparison.
But yeah, is he more of a sort of support striker than the guy? Like, he misses so many chances. And it's like a bit like Giroud, I guess. Obviously, they're much different sort of builds, but I thought one of his best aspects today, and I think a lot of Man United fans have been talking about it, when he is on form, it's a lot of sort of one-touch play on the edge of the box. So do you think maybe the perception of him as an out-and-out goal scorer needs to change for him to be truly rated, or do you just think he's a goal scorer but isn't scoring goals right now?
I don't think he's a goal scorer because he gets chances when he plays.
I don't know. I don't think he does. They don't really play him. They don't really seem to have a proper number 9 that they play at United. So it's, I think they're lacking like a little focal point, because I think that he's quick, working between the lines, kind of running in. He should inevitably have more goals because he has a lot of chances. But I think they're kind of missing a guy in the middle to kind of move off a bit. Do you know what I mean? I feel like they're missing a Lukaku, but that didn't really work for them, did it? And Cavani's been a bit meh.
Yeah, definitely. Should we move on to we'll come to Chelsea last, have a bit of a discussion on them as a whole. So if we move to Liverpool, Fulham, we won't touch on it too long because we talk about Liverpool every week at the moment. But going into the game, Max, before we get to the result, what do you think the result was going to be in your heart of hearts?
I actually messaged a chat with you, Sam, and Harrison, who we had on last week.
Yeah.
What were my words? What did I say? I don't think we'll lose.
Yeah.
I was that low on confidence that I thought, oh well, we won't lose. We'll probably draw.
It's crazy how quickly that happens. I remember Arsenal's run. Obviously, we haven't been at the level you were last year for years, but when we had that run in December when everyone was talking about relegation, and we literally couldn't get a win anywhere. I genuinely, every game, it was like Burnley at home, we lost 1-0 before the game. I was like, I think we could get a 0-0 here if we just kind of stick at it. It drains you so much. This run of bad results, is that 5 in a row at home now, or 6?
Six now, yeah.
6 in a row. That's awful.
Yeah, it's all the pictures of Jurgen Klopp saying, "Let's talk about 6, baby." Lovely.
I did see that as well, actually.
Did that mean anything to you, actually, Harry, bringing Chelsea into it? Because you've got the record, don't you, for the unbeaten run?
Yeah.
Were you happy to see that? Were you happy to see that go?
I mean, yeah, to be honest, I was. I felt, I mean, don't get me wrong, their winning streak was unreal. I don't think they got enough credit for that. But I was definitely happy to see it go. But I do think that kind of it was during that prime Mourinho era where it was every game we went into, it was like, we're not gonna concede. If we concede, we'll just concede 1 and then someone will get us out of it.
It's true. I mean, I think I think for Fulham it was a massive result. I don't want to focus just on Liverpool. They're now level on points with Brighton.
Yeah.
1 point behind Newcastle. I think Newcastle are most in trouble. Well, only if Brighton starts scoring. But it depends on when Callum Wilson comes back for me, because he's about the only source of goals they have. And he's still out, I think, and for a couple more weeks at least.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I don't see Fulham going down. So I think Newcastle are in the most trouble out of all of those teams down there.
You know this XG meme about Brighton where they've
seen
got
that.
such good XG, but they just don't have an out-and-out striker. So are you saying, obviously they're a point behind Newcastle right now, Max? Are you backing them to start converting and just get enough done once again to stay up?
Well, they need to be quite honest. It's frankly ridiculous the amount of chances they create in a game and don't score. Like, I've not seen a team that bad at finishing in a long time that plays such good football. They play such nice football. I know last year we said about Norwich, but Norwich were a lot worse than Brighton, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
So they just need to convert their chances. I thought Morpay was decent when they brought him in, but he's clearly not up to the task. So, I mean, hopefully, I think Welbeck was out for a while, so hopefully he can provide something.
I think Lallana was back this weekend because he scored. I remember he scored, and the commentator was like, "Oh, they've got someone who can score." They just lost anyway.
Honestly, I don't understand that club. Sometimes.
Yeah, I do feel for Brighton. They play some really nice stuff.
They play fantastic football.
Yeah, and it's nice to see kind of like English manager playing good football, because you get the type with like the Sam Allardyce, the Chris Wilder, the Sean Dyche. Like, it's all like these, like, you know, big old geezers playing this proper defensive kind of football, which is, you know, it's nice to see an English manager kind of playing something more progressive for sure.
Yeah. And so do you guys, obviously Sheffield United are probably gone now, but do you think West Brom, do you think they're done after that result with Newcastle this weekend? Did any of you watch that game?
No, but I know you did.
It was the worst game of football. I saw so many tweets afterwards that were people saying, like, I was there, I watched 93 minutes of Newcastle West Brom. It was appalling. But yeah, I mean, that's actually Sam Allardyce going to be his first time going down if it happens. Do you think if he does, that's going to be like the myth gone? Do you think that will be the end of him getting these jobs at the bottom of the Prem? Or do you think he's going to stick around?
It won't be the end, but I think it damages him a little bit. I think we know what he is now. So, I mean, he was great for Bolton 10 years ago, but he's not.
I mean, it's his hardest job, isn't it? The West Brom one is definitely hard. I mean, that is, like, as a squad, that is probably the worst I think I've ever seen in the Premier League, really, like, that I can remember. You know, and yeah, I think it'd be a massive thing if you kept them up, but I just don't think it'd be able to keep them up.
Yeah. I mean, if they do stay up, they'll probably just do a lesser and win the league next year. Captained by Maitland-Niles, who joins on a free or something. But if we move on then to... So Liverpool basically in the mud. Oh, actually, I don't know if you guys have seen this. Have you seen that Joachim Löw is going to step down from Germany?
Yeah.
After Euros. And I saw an article linking Klopp. Do you think there's any chance of that happening, or do you think he's trying to get you out of... You think this summer it could be possible that he goes?
Yeah, because I see him now that's happened. I think Klopp was always going to be interested in taking the Germany job at some point. I think that's pretty well known. And I mean, if he doesn't go for it in the summer, then when would he go for it? He'd have to wait probably. I mean, I know his contract at Liverpool runs till 2024, so the plan was he'd take a year out and then he'd come back and see if he wanted to do it, see if he wanted to carry on in management. So by then, maybe another manager would have come and gone. But at the same time, you can't predict when an international manager is going to go. It's just they are very, very long stints, or sometimes they have like a 1 or 2 year stint. Yeah. So I think it is a real possibility. If he doesn't get backing from the owners, I could see him going, because frankly, he's having an awful time of it at the moment and an awful season for numerous reasons. But the guy, since we won the Champions League, we invest heavily before the Champions League. Since then, and that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
not a lot's come through the door, to be quite honest, to help him out. If you really think about it, all the investment came before that Champions League win. Yeah, so I see him. I think it's a real possibility. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, to be honest, on the topic. It could happen.
Do you think it will be league winning Steven Gerrard coming in to
I hope not.
replace him? Do you not want that yet? Too
No,
early?
no. I mean, great achievement, but he's got to build his repertoire. It's not a sort of come as you go. Like, I understand. I'd love it. Like, I would get caught up in it. Don't get me wrong. But
that's the Lampard thing as well, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it's the same with Lampard at Chelsea, wasn't it?
Yeah, I want to be winning. I don't want to be spending 5 years building something. And I know Klopp did it, but at least Klopp was extremely exciting as an individual and as a player, as a man.
And he came in as well. I feel like your expectations have got
to
change.
And he was a man who had won. He'd won back-to-back Bundesligas. He won the double. He reached a Champions League final already. I mean, the guy had a resume. Gerrard's building that, and he's had a very good start, but I'd like to see a little bit more before he comes in. I don't want to spend 2 years, win nothing, and then be like, oh, bye. A bit like Lampard. So
well, if we move on to that then, Harry, before we talk about the game itself last night, what do you make of the whole Lampard and now Tuchel situation?
The Lampard thing was, I don't know, he's, I was kind of that era of like, he was my favourite player, like always. I had a season ticket at Stamford Bridge for a few years, and I used to go with my dad, and he was my favourite player. And then one year I saw him in a bar outside Stamford Bridge, and I got a picture with him. So I was proper Chelsea fanboy over him, to be fair. And then when he got the job, I was it felt really weird. It was like, this has all come too soon. I pictured this when I was like 35, and then, it's Lampard and Terry, manager and assistant. But it felt like it came too soon. He did a great job in his first year. I think that was I think it was a bit underrated, the job he did, because for the first time in 20 years, we had 4 academy players playing pretty much most weeks, and we got top 4 from it. And we've seen some players like Mason Mount and Reece James coming through, Callum Hudson-Odoi coming through, who are, really good players. But it kind of felt like after a while, kind of in the certain areas where an experienced manager would kind of get all the superstars to play well together, that his ability to kind of get the big price tags and, all of that to play a system which really worked, feels like he couldn't do that. And I think that's where Tuchel's really seemed exceptional, where he's got everyone to kind of come together and play in a nice way.
What did you make of the game last night then? We touched on it a minute ago that I've got a mate who's a Chelsea fan, and he came messaging me as soon as it finished, like, yeah, Havertz is going to win the Ballon d'Or. He's back. This is it. Do you think he is going to start kicking on now? I mean, I remember when it was, post lockdown, the first one, when it was just the Bundesliga back first, I would watch basically all the Dortmund and Leverkusen games, and he was playing sort of in a false 9, or almost, to be honest, he was kind of a number 9 because he's obviously quite tall, and he was just so good at setting people up. He was scoring headers, and I was like, if this does happen, it's going to be a danger. And obviously didn't quite pan out like that straight away. Do you think this could be the beginning of his climb back to that level?
Yeah, I mean, I'd obviously hope so. I think that he was really good. I do think that sometimes he just looks a bit timid on the pitch, like he lacks a bit of bite sometimes. So, pulling out of challenges and just where you want a bit of that intensity. But no, yeah, I think that he will, once he improves in confidence, I'm sure that he'll do really well. I mean, he's got so much ability, like he can pretty much do everything, and he's like 6'1" as well. So as you say, he can kind of contribute in the box of headers and that, but it's just kind of toughening up a bit and being confident and more assured. And I'm sure he will turn into a top player,
What else did you take from the game yesterday? I don't know if you saw it, Max, but going back to Harry, where do you think you're in fourth right now? Do you think you're you're likely to secure that spot, or maybe even catch Leicester in third?
I think you've got to be realistic. We've got a squad that which should be in fourth anyway, and we're playing really well. We don't look like we're going to concede a goal, and you got a lot of top players. You got to be confident. You got to back your team. So for sure, I see that happening. Leicester is a bit of a worry kind of thing, and West Ham, but we've spent all this money. We've got this top manager. It's you got to finish in these positions.
Who do you see as the biggest threat to your top four hopes? Was it Everton, and now that's been dismissed? Because they've still got games in hand, haven't they?
Everton again, nice team, play some good stuff, but they occasionally do an awful performance.
Yeah,
they've got some really bad performances in them, so I don't find them too much a problem. I mean, there's Tottenham obviously, but they've had an easy run of games.
I mean, Tottenham, if they win their game in hand, they'd be 2 points behind you. Everton would be 1 if they won their game in hand, and actually West Ham would go above you if they win their game in hand.
Yeah, I've seen that. West Ham have got tricky games though. They play United and Arsenal next, don't they?
Interesting, to be fair. I mean, yes, they do both. But yeah, United away, home against Arsenal.
They'll beat Arsenal.
They'll beat Arsenal, yeah. They'll beat.
Yeah, I could see. I think the Man United game is very, very interesting.
Yeah,
it would be. Yeah.
Well, West Ham were unlucky in the first one. Was that the one where Man United ended up winning like 3-1 or something? It looked comfortable, but there was the
they got dominated,
and then they got that Pogba goal that looked like it went out of play.
Yeah. As usual, they got away with it.
Yeah. No, West Ham dominated that game the whole of the first half. Should have been about 2 or 3 up. But
I feel like with this top four races, like you mentioned the money you spent, I feel like it's just a factor sometimes when you play for a club like Chelsea. Like, obviously the players themselves have got top four before, but they'll just be more used to it. When you're playing it's like we've seen it with Leicester. There comes a panic. There comes the point where they're like, oh, we need to get this done. Whereas Chelsea will be like, we did this last year. We've done it the last 10 years, whatever. So I think you're going to be getting it, and I think there'll be a fight for another spot. And assuming I'd say Arsenal obviously out of it. I'd say Villa are probably out of it. So I would hope for West Ham or Everton over Tottenham clearly. But I reckon West Ham would just be such a good story. But then Everton for me would be a great, or obviously Leicester. But I think I said last week, Harvey Barnes getting injured with all their other injuries. I think Leicester are going to struggle to keep the pace now. But,
I think with Declan Rice, man, West Ham, I love watching him play, I'm getting excited about seeing him play for England. And I didn't think everyone was really not optimistic about him in the media, weren't they? A while ago, oh, Declan Rice just passes sideways, just centre back playing CDM, But he's looked really good. They had a really good interview last night, actually. Just talking up. He actually talked up West Ham's chances and was like, "We've got a great group here. We can do something. Bring on Man United."
It is funny because you do look at their squad now, and it's actually a good squad. It makes you wonder why they were doing so badly. And Moyes is really shit. I think it's a massive credit to Moyes because I said this a while back. I think Moyes was falling into that bracket of Allardyce and that sort of manager. People were starting to view him in that light. Didn't he take over at Sunderland a couple of years ago? Yeah. I think this has re-jogged people's memories and has actually reminded people that he's a top manager who was an excellent manager at Everton for 10 years.
I think what he did with West Ham, which was so good, was he took out those kind of 3 players or 2 players. I think Felipe Anderson and Haller, who were just not really pulling their weight. Working for the team wise, and he brought in, Jared Bowen and Antonio starts every week, and those guys will run the whole game.
It's great,
and in the work.
Yeah.
So I'm not that surprised really.
Yeah, no. Oh, come on, you Irons. That's what I always say. So I reckon that's probably that for the Premier League roundup. If we quickly, before we get to the fan section, if we hop on to the Champions League, which obviously we're recording this on a Tuesday, so it's the second legs tonight.
We've got Porto versus
have completely dropped. So Max.
Porto, Juve, at Juve, and it's
Dortmund Sevilla.
Dortmund Sevilla at Dortmund.
So Porto Juve's 2-1 Porto, isn't it?
Yeah.
What are we saying for that?
I'm back in Porto. Come on, I'm back in Porto.
I think that away goal's killed them.
Nah.
I think Juve will get it done.
Nah.
Well, Juve have been poor this year. I've seen a lot about how like Pirlo hasn't.
Yeah.
Quite sort of.
If Juve play as bad, anywhere near as bad as they did in the first,
they were awful.
That is one of the worst performances I've seen by a top side in Europe in a while. Yeah. Like, it was horrendous. They didn't deserve to get a goal, to be honest, at all. It was about the only decent chance. I haven't seen Ronaldo disappear in a game like that, like ever.
Yeah,
like he was not a factor, which was a bit weird because I'm not used to seeing that. But I'm gonna back Porto. Why not? I mean, they've shown that.
If you had to put a score to it, what are you going for?
1-1. Just about do it.
Okay, what are you saying, Harry?
I reckon Juve will win. I think it'll be CR7 all the way. Every time this happens, he doesn't usually play that badly, but always in these games he turns up does some silly celebration, and it's like, oh, well, how could we not see that coming? Like Ronaldo hat trick. Like, even if they're penalties, I think it always happens. So
yeah,
you can listen back to this podcast, and then you'll hear me saying Ronaldo gets the winner. So we'll see it tonight.
Yeah, I'm going Juve as well. That's such a like pathway to sum up. Is like, it's not even necessarily that he plays well, but he will get the hat trick or he'll get the brace or whatever it is. I think it's got to be Juve. I'm gonna go 3-1 Juve.
Yeah, same.
So the other one was Dortmund Sevilla, which is kind of, it's sort of obviously like heavily in Dortmund's favour because it's 3 away goals, but it's far from done. And Dortmund this season, sort of watching highlights from the Bundesliga, have been up and down. Like, literally their last game was Bayern Munich. Haaland got a brace to put them ahead, and then Lewandowski just kind of put him in his place a little bit, getting a hat trick the other way. Do you think Dortmund are going to see that one out? I think that's I think Dortmund have done it.
I think it's done already. I mean, Dortmund were looking pretty shaky, and then they went and blew Sevilla away for most of the game in the first leg. And they've as much as they lost to Bayern, their form has picked up in the last few games. So I don't. It is in Dortmund to massively collapse, but I don't see it happening tonight.
I think Sevilla lost this weekend, didn't they, to Barcelona? Or recently they lost 3-0 to Barcelona.
Yeah, they lost. It was the Copa del Rey semis. They in the 94th minute, and then
did PK score or something?
Yeah, 94th minute. And it went to extra time and they lost.
So I think I'm not sure. I think I heard someone saying that Gomez, when he moved from Atalanta, that was a big move, and I think people were quite sort of excited by it. But I've heard he's not quite sort of settled yet. Obviously, with everything going on with the pandemic and moving to a whole new country, it's not going to be ideal. So I think Dortmund are going to get this one done. I can see them winning it. I'll just go bog standard 2-0 Dortmund, I think.
I'm going to say it's going to be a crazy game, but I think Dortmund will have it. I think it'll be similar to the first leg. I think it'll be, but I think they'll be up 3-1 for most of the game, and then they concede late on.
I agree. I think they're kind of like a entertainers team, Dortmund, at the minute. You can't really take them. It's a bit like Liverpool's Klopp first at the beginning, where really interesting to watch, but that they'll concede a couple goals. So I think it'll be a good game, but I do think Dortmund's attacking power is, like, especially with Haaland, will be a bit too much for him.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to say, obviously there's so much talk about Haaland in the summer. I don't know if you see the comments where someone suggested that he said Chelsea doesn't like make the list for him. There's like 6 teams and Chelsea just don't make that bracket. Do you think there's truth in that, or do you think there's still a chance that could happen?
Well, funny enough, me and Max had a little bet after a couple of beers that Haaland was on his way to Chelsea already. So I might have to. If he said that, I won't be too happy. But I've already begun watching the Welcome to Chelsea videos on YouTube and all that sort of rubbish. But I don't think he'll. I don't know. Maybe it's just a bit of a dream, but. At the end of the day, if the bigger clubs are in for him, they'll probably get him. But Chelsea's negotiating power, and like obviously the fact that ran by like a billionaire Russian oligarch. I think that there's always a chance in that sort of move. But if the bigger clubs are in for him, then
I just think
don't know.
I think a lot of the bigger clubs aren't necessarily in a place right now. Like I'd say Juve don't know too much about their finances, but they've got Ronaldo. You've got loads of good players around them. Then you've got Barcelona and Real Madrid, and obviously there's been all this made of their financial situation. I think even Atletico are in a big financial situation right now. Obviously, you've got PSG, but are they going to want to openly sort of let go of an Mbappe? And then I guess it really, the worst thing for me, if he goes to Bayern Munich, I'm just done, and I'm never getting excited about
Or City.
Dortmund player. The City,
City isn't as bad, but it's still bad.
No, but
City. That'd be amazing. I think it'd be amazing.
Tell you what, no one's winning the league for the next 4 years if he goes to City.
But no, he's insane. I think it'd be great wherever he goes. But if he goes to Bayern Munich, I'm giving up on the Bundesliga forever because the amount of times I've got excited about.
What is the point of competition?
Oh, honestly,
every single player from your second best team just hops on the best team's bandwagon. Every single time they've got a decent player. Marco Reus is the only guy who has refused to do it. Like, I'm sure
he's injured every second game.
Yeah, exactly.
He's injured every other game, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Bayern would have looked at him. So, I mean, Lewandowski. Who else are we talking? Hummels.
Yeah, that was such a shock when that happened as well. Yeah, Goetze was awful at the time. It didn't really work out, but
who was recently? I mean, Upamecano from Leipzig.
Yeah, that was boring.
Oh,
they got Gnabry as well from, I want to say, was it Hoffenheim or Werder Bremen? He was at one of them. But don't please Bayern Munich if you're listening. Don't buy Haaland. So we move on to the German team in the Champions League, or one of them. You got Leipzig, Liverpool tomorrow night. It's 2-0, right? Liverpool.
Yeah, it's in Budapest again though, so it's like.
Oh, okay. So you're not really at home, but you are.
No.
I don't know, for me that. Oh well, I say it's done, but you're awful.
I'm a little bit worried. I am a little bit worried about an upset, but because we have Fabinho back, I'm a little bit more assured. I think he is so solid. I think that really, really helps us out. So,
I think the fact you got the lead is going to help you out massively. It's almost going to be a bit like the Man City Man U game, where it's almost like you've scored straight away. Now you can just get it done with the counter-attacking power you've got. It's going to be hard to stop. Yeah, I'm just going to go boring Liverpool.
I'm going to say 1-1. It's going to be 1-1.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you score once, it's over. Really, to be honest. But to be fair, like, you know, in the game that you beat them in, you got it off 2 defensive errors.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a complete performance. You know what I mean?
No.
So I think you can be a bit wary, but I do think you'll have too much from. I think you'll get a goal on the break. I agree. I think it'll be 1-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
And the other one is PSG Barca, and I think that's completely dead in the water anyway. I don't think they're Barca come back.
3-1 or
4-1. That was away from home as well, so they'd have to score 4.
So, that's such a shame. But I think I was listening to someone talking about sort of La Liga the other day, and they're saying it was such a shame because Barca haven't actually been like anything like that recently. They're actually really picking up in the league, like we just mentioned that Sevilla result. So I think it's such a shame because you get people who just watch I'm basically in that bracket where you only really see these teams in the Champions League and you just think Barcelona in an absolute crisis kind of thing. But yeah, that's done, isn't it? I think Mbappe. There's no Neymar though. I think they announced, but it shouldn't make a difference. I think Mbappe will get the job done.
He'll score 1 or 2 at least.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. Against that Barca defense. I mean, it's pretty shaky to say the least.
Do you think Messi's? How long do you think Messi's got left to try and get another Champions League? Do you think he's still leaving this summer, or do you think that new president's kept him there?
It depends because I was looking at it. I haven't looked at all the presidential candidates, but one of them, Laporta, he was around from 2003 to 2010, I believe.
Yeah.
So he was there when Barca were incredible, and he was sort of running the show. So I think if he won the presidency, I could see him perhaps convincing Messi.
Has he not won it, or is he just the favourite?
I don't know. I haven't seen.
I'm pretty sure he won it.
He's either won it or he is like absolute favourite.
Let me have a look.
But he Yeah,
he
he's
did
won
win
it.
it.
Yeah,
He did win it.
Yeah,
So
won it yesterday.
yeah.
yeah, I think
So I think
there is a possibility,
yeah,
because when you've got a man, when you start bringing in the structures of when you were successful, that is a convincing argument, especially if you've
yeah,
got a man that was at the helm during the best years of your career.
yeah.
Especially when
I
he
mean, it's not
had,
like their team's not even that far off anyway. Like, it's
like,
not
it
TikTok.
isn't
They've still
really.
got De Jong, Dembele. They've got so many players there that are young as well.
Yeah.
I think it could be a good couple of years for them if they do get to keep Messi.
Unfortunately, though, they've got to turn themselves from being the worst run big club in Europe into a
Yeah,
well-run big club, and that is the challenge for Laporta.
yeah,
I mean, their offices got raided a week ago, didn't they?
yeah,
After all that corruption thing.
yeah.
Yeah, arrest
So it is a really unstable club, and it's just if they can get it right. I think, obviously the whole contract situation, Messi's like contract details got leaked and all his cash getting revealed. Like, it's not really a good look, is it?
I just wanted to, before we move on from this Champions League chat, we may as well talk about it now. We'll talk about it next week as well. But whilst we've got a Chelsea fan, what are you thinking for your second leg chances next week? Obviously, you got a great result at Atletico, 1-0 win, Giroud with an overhead kick. Do you think you can keep that up and get through the next leg?
Yeah, I do. I mean, as I was saying earlier, funnily enough, after a few beers, me and Max also spoke about this this game, and I did a little survey of the room, and no one said we had a chance. And now going into the second leg, I'm pretty confident we'll be through this without a scratch. The first leg was comfortable, to be honest. They have been a bit, dodgy with their form, Atletico Madrid, and it just felt a bit, it doesn't feel like we're going to concede.
Yeah.
And when you start from that base, it's just like you nick a goal, and look, we got an extraordinary goal with a bicycle kick. So happy for that, and I do just think it'll be another thing of we control the second leg, and I think we should be fine.
Just like every week, we've asked Harry a series of questions about his own personal sort of memories of Chelsea Football Club. So I want to start with, what is your first memory of football? And it doesn't have to be of Chelsea, of course. It's just your first memory of when you started following football.
For me, well, it's kind of a Chelsea kind of theme, but not really. It was that England goal that was disallowed, that Lampard goal against Germany. I remember it was like the first time that I was with all my cousins kind of watching it, and it was like the first time that I really felt like all of us coming together and watching football and feeling that kind of like, all the lads watching the footy, and that was a nice feeling, but obviously wasn't a nice feeling that goal getting disallowed. And that team was still pretty decent. It was, what was 2010, I think it was. Yeah, it was 2010. Yeah. And the team was still pretty decent. You had JT, you had like Gerrard, Ashley Cole was there. But that's kind of my first memory in terms of a football memory. Of course, being an England memory, it's associated with pain, but still.
That is an horrific first memory. I was so upset. That, honestly. Like, that is in probably the top 3 worst moments I've had as a football fan.
Yeah, it's 2-1 as well at the time, wasn't it?
2-1. Matthew Upton, the giant, had just scored it. Bring us back into the game. And you just a little dink over Neuer. Imagine the scenes. Like, we come from 2 down in about 2 minutes, and we're just flying. We probably
were.
We probably would have gone on to win the game.
Do you really think so?
Well, at 2-2, we just scored 2 in 2 minutes. Lampard's just dinked Neuer from about 30 yards.
What a goal as well! What a goal!
I know.
And it was my idol, mate. You can imagine that it was doubly painful because it was like, I really wanted him to score as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, first memory's a painful one, but still.
So if we move on to your favourite moment as a Chelsea fan, and obviously I feel like I could probably guess. I feel like
no, I'm gonna go for a bit more left field because it'd be very easy to go, oh yeah, that night in Munich, Drogba tucked it away with his little celebration. Like they'd be very kind of like, oh, what a surprise. Of course, that was amazing. Will always be the best one. But you know, as I was saying earlier in the pod, I was saying that I was lucky enough to have a season ticket for quite a while with my dad, and we went to that year when Chelsea finished 10th and Leicester won the league. And we were at that game where it was 2-2 at Stamford Bridge. And they were 2-0 up at half time with all these flares going off in the away end. And they're all jumping around going, oh, yeah, you're absolutely rubbish, all of that. At half time, we were looking garbage. 2-1, you know, players that like they should be sent off. And then Hazard whips it in the top corner in like the 80th minute or something like that. The scenes, absolutely amazing. And it was so great, you know. Stamford Bridge is, you know, it's not like, it's a bit like the Emirates. It can get a bit quiet sometimes. Prawn cocktail sandwich brigade, you know, all of that sort of nonsense. and yeah, when he whipped it in top bins, it was all this. It was moshing at Stamford Bridge, and that felt pretty special. And you know, after the game, all the fans being split up, and everyone's, you know, giving the finger to the Tottenham fans over there, and yeah, it was that to me is my kind of, when I think back, that is, funnily enough, that is probably my favourite one.
So you said you have a season ticket. Have you been to many away games?
Yeah, I've been to a few away games. I went to Old Trafford for my 11th birthday.
Oh,
Drove all the way up and watched us get beaten 2-1. It was like, I think it was like a 9-hour drive or something terrible like that. And saw us lose 2-1 to like Rooney and Tevez. It was around that sort of time when they were just like a banging team. I've been to Loftus Road, which, you know, is particularly quite unremarkable. It's Loftus Road, isn't it? It's not really like, you know, the theatre of football or anything like that. I went to there. Where else did I go? I've been to the Emirates a few times. Went for a 0-0 Arsenal-Chelsea, which was pretty dull. But yeah, and then I also went on a football tour when I was quite young. I went to the Nou Camp, and I saw Barcelona play Almeria, and that was probably my best kind of away ground experience.
See, I feel like this is what I'm missing out on, not living in a city, because living in the southwest, like far southwest, because you live in the southwest as well, Sam.
Like, yeah, I go to Bristol City.
Yeah, at least you have Bristol.
That's the max I've done. Yeah,
Bristol City is pretty decent. Did you go when Tammy Abraham was playing for him?
Yeah, I've been. My mate's got a season ticket, so I basically go with him whenever he goes with his dad. Whenever his dad didn't go, I would sort of go. I watched them beat Leeds. That was probably the best game I went to see there. But literally the whole game. Don't know if you guys know him. They got a centre mid called Marlon Pack, who they now hate. He's joined Cardiff. But the whole game, my mate's like, he's rubbish. He passes sideways. That's all he does, and he scores the winner against Leeds. And he's like, he's the best player we've got. But yeah, no, I couldn't imagine living out where Max.
Honestly, the only team where I am are my beloved Exeter City and our biggest rivals, Plymouth. And Torquay, who were in League. Torquay were in League One or League Two a few years back, but now they've dropped to the National. So, I mean, I love Exeter, but there isn't much. Like, the issue is, I think, for a team like Exeter or Plymouth, you have to travel for every game, like a ridiculous amount of miles. Like we've got Carlisle in our division. They're literally the opposite end of the country.
Who else is in your division? Who else is in that division? Big team wise.
I mean, Salford are now.
Yeah.
I think top of the league at the moment. I mean, Cambridge are at the top. Let me bring the league up. There's a few decent teams. Bolton in the league.
We need to watch Brighton a bit, Max, and I literally cannot believe. You know, we talk about the XG now and how good football they play.
Yeah.
We have somehow gone to the dullest games they've had. We've been to see Huddersfield, which was awful. I think they won 1-0 it was more than 1-0. We watched Derby in the Cup.
But to be fair,
the highlight was Ashley Cole playing.
Yeah. Literally, the only excitement in that game against Derby was because it was 2-0 for most of the game and it was pretty boring. Yeah. And then Derby scored one in the 80th minute.
Yeah.
And then the last 10 minutes were mad.
To be fair though, as well, we did see Basuma get like this insane. He sort of nutmeg someone, and I think he did like an outside the foot shot onto the post.
Yeah.
And since then, that was when he joined. Since then, I'm like, yeah, Basuma's insane, and now he's actually getting the credit, and I'm like, yeah, I called Basuma so long ago.
Good player.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he's a top player. I'd love him at Arsenal.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on to this is one. I think these last two questions are the hardest out of the four that we tend to ask. I know we've had trouble answering these ourselves because there's so many to choose from. So what's your favourite moment from football that doesn't include Chelsea whatsoever?
Well, I'm not a very good fan of anything other than Chelsea, to be honest with you. But what I did really enjoy was I never was really a fan of the Clásicos. You're talking about the El Clasico part. I'm sure you talked about the one where a couple of messy moments for me. The one where he gives in against Bayern Munich when he gives Boateng the slip and then like puts him on his arse and sticks it in the net.
That's my moment.
That's a big goal. But also I like the one when there was their El Clasico and he scored in like the 94th minute.
I said that
and held up his shirt with Messi on the back.
Lovely. That's my favourite El Clasico moment ever. That 94th win at the Bernabeu as well.
500th goal or something stupid like that as well.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah, so I didn't really like the El Clasicos, obviously, because Chelsea had that massive rivalry with Barcelona, where they just cheated every time they played us. So I kind of abstained for a bit. But after we beat them in that 2012 semi-final, I kind of was like, well, I'll give these lot a go now. But yeah, no, that Messi goal against Boateng and that El Clasico for sure.
Good shouts. So yeah, if we do go on to the last question, Chelsea have signed just about everybody under the sun. I think it was last week? Did we have a Tottenham fan with someone saying they wanted Hazard?
Yeah, it was Harrison.
Yeah. Because I brought up in that I wanted Hazard as well because it was literally it could have come to us and we ended up with Jafinho. But of all the players you have missed out on, which I'm sure there's a lot, as with every team, you get linked with everyone under the sun. Who's the one player you wish Chelsea did sign?
Haaland.
Oh well, Haaland's already on his way, mate. Verbal contract agreed with me, mate. It's already done, mate. But it's a good question. I mean, there was that kind of era when like we just got the loads of money and we nearly signed quite a lot of players.
Yeah.
So there was like Ronaldinho, because he scored that goal against Chelsea and we won 4-2 at the Bridge outside. Like he just stopped and just toe poked the ball into the corner.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have seen a player of that kind of style come to us because I really enjoyed the Hazard kind of vibe. It was nice to see someone playing football and really enjoying it rather than like we work really hard for Mourinho. Kind of like it's great you win, but it's not that fun to watch. But another player I wish we'd signed. Well, I wish we'd kept Lukaku, Salah, and De Bruyne. That would have been nice. But I wish who would signed? Okay, here's a good one. Oh, Gerrard was a good one, to be fair. He was. Do
you think
Chelsea were really interested in?
Do you think if you'd signed him, you would have won the European Cup before you did? With the Gerrard Lampard tandem, and with England, do you think England would have done a lot better if those two had actually been playing together at club level?
I do think a big part of why it didn't work internationally was the fact that they were so divided in their club camps.
Yeah, Chelsea Liverpool was a massive rivalry at the time.
Yeah, it was. It was like when you guys were cheating with the ghost goal as well. Yeah, you got lucky with that one. And there was a big rivalry. We met you in a couple an FA Cup final as well.
Yeah,
and you got outclassed by Drogba and Czech.
Andy Carroll nearly brought it back.
The Golden Goose Carroll, no chance, mate. No chance. But yeah, no, I think it just would have been amazing to see two of the best midfielders, you know, in England for a generation playing together more. I just think it would have been interesting to see how they worked, and if you'd put like I don't know how you would have done it, but with like maybe like a midfield three and had the two of them kind of just like go and do whatever you want, lads, and have someone defending kind of thing. But it would have been amazing to see the two of them playing together for sure.
Thank you very much for tuning in. You can check us on Spotify, YouTube. Thank you to Harry for coming on as well. Always a joy to listen to, even as a Chelsea fan. Check us out, subscribe, make sure you listen to the pod on Spotify, and we'll see you next week.